Well, hello, Americans, Patriots, how you doing? Well, with all the trouble Boeing has had the last 10 days, as well as United Airlines, and now American Airlines yesterday, I just happened to do some research today and found out that December of 22, a flight on a Boeing 77 on United Airlines, do we see a pattern here developing? Took off from Hawaii. It was supposed to be a trip. It was a trip to San Francisco, California. And when the flight took off, it was a moderate during a rainstorm. I'm not sure how heavy it was, but in at the beginning when the flight is climbing, the passenger jet then seemed to take a pretty big nosedive to the ocean, and that airline came within 750 feet of hitting that ocean until the pilots was able to recover from it. 45 seconds in total, which is an eternity, I guess, when you're in a situation like that, and just continued the rest of the way to San Francisco. Now, what was even more unbelievable, I think it took United Airlines 2 months to report this to the FAA. And the mainstream news got wind of it much, much later. And when I looked on YouTube today for clips of this thing, and the Anchor people reporting it, and oh my god, how could this happen? Um, None of the Anchor people, and the story wasn't heavily covered, never asked the question, well, why did it take so long? Or be concerned, why did it take so long to report this story to us? Why did it take so long to get to the FAA? What was the result of the NTSB investigation? Nothing. Now, I did say the pilots were then taken into further training, which tells me, were they not trained enough already? Or were they retrained something they might have messed up on? We don't know. And apparently, the first officer had about just over 5,000 hours of flight experience, which is, I guess, pretty normal for the first officer. Your captain surely has more experience. But he only had just over 100 hours on the Boeing 77, and this guy was a fairly recent new hire for the airline. Makes you wonder, but what makes you wonder even more is the identities of these pilots were never released. And why is that? Well, we do know the United Airlines is pretty adamant about acting like the government and say they're only interested now in hiring either minorities to be pilots or women as pilots in their DEI program, diversity, equity, and inclusion crap programming. And you can bet that these two pilots are probably both minorities, which is why their identities aren't being released, flat out being ignored. Years ago, we would have known who the pilots were right away. But to this day, I still don't believe we know who those pilots were. Now, as I said on their website, they're pretty aggressive about hiring minorities and women. In a industry, 93% are white males. And generally, a lot of them are generally ex-military pilots, either from the Navy or the Air Force, whatever. And then they come in and they get retrained by the airline. And it just so happens that the United Airlines has opened up their own flight training school, I think. I think they're the only airline I know of that has done that opened up their own flight training school. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But again, they're training aggressively for women and minorities. And they're working with a group called Sisters of the Sky, meaning black women pilots. Sisters of the Sky. Their initials are SOS. Now, they may have a sense of humor about it, which, I'm all for humor, but these are one of these instances where humor may not be too appropriate. And in an industry where there is a major shortage of pilots, no thanks to the old C-19er, and then the jab they forced people to take, which forced a lot of people to resign, it has become hard to find pilots without overworking them. So you have to wonder, is this a DEI cover-up we're dealing with here? Because if these two people were men, and they were white men, we would have known right away. But because it's over, what, 14, 16 months already, and we still don't know the identity of these pilots of that flight from Hawaii to San Francisco, yep, you could bet they were either minorities or they were women, and they weren't trained good enough, or they weren't competent enough to fly, but because they had the right gender or race or color, they would give them the go, hey, here you go, fly a big old Boeing 777. Now listen, I've always been a fan of flying, although not a fan of the politics of flying and dealing with the TSA, and the way flying is no longer what it used to be. It makes you want to just buy a luxury car, even if you got to take a bigger loan for it, which I'm against, and just drive yourself anywhere you need to please. Or better yet, maybe one of those old-time conversion vans. Pretty sure they still sell them. The ones with the big side window, the curtain, and the back bench seat that could fold into a bed with a little table. That may be the way to go now, because between the crap that's going on at Boeing and the crap out of United Airlines and this whole DEI crap, it may be cheaper and safer to be on the ground, even though they still say flying is the most safest way to travel. Comments down below what your opinion like to know. I'll try to find some links to put in the description box. Check them out. We'll talk to you later.